Hi, I'm Alison from HealthNutNation.com, and today we're going to talk about how to render lard. So let's get started rendering this leaf lard into actual lard. Now, there are three different types of fat that you'll find on a pig, and leaf lard is actually the healthiest. There's the back fat that's right under the skin, and there's the belly fat, which you'll find in bacon. That's actually belly fat. And the leaf lard is actually the fat that surrounds the kidneys. And like I said, it is the healthiest out of all of those three choices. Now, if you get this from a butcher, it is best to ask that butcher to grind it up. You will render more quickly, and you will also get more actual lard out of it. So I'm just going to cut this up into really small pieces. Now, I've done this before and cut it up into large pieces, and I didn't get nearly as much lard in the end, and it took a lot longer to actually render it down into this lard, the actual lard. I keep saying it's confusing because this is actually pig fat, and then once you render it, it's lard. But it's easy to call them both lard, right? So some of the benefits of lard are that lard can be very high in omega-3s. Now, omega-3s are that oil that we get from salmon oil, cod liver oil, krill oil, and it is a very healthy oil. And we pay a lot of money, right, to get it from salmon oil pills or actual salmon or cod liver oil. But the truth is that when you have a pig that has been allowed to graze naturally on tubers and roots and healthy pastured green grass, then that animal has fat that is actually extremely high in omega-3s. Now, there have been some studies that have shown that rendered lard, and especially by heirloom pigs, is actually higher in omega-3s than salmon. So you can see that this is a pretty sticky, messy job. It would go a lot faster and be less sticky if this were semi-frozen, if not all the way frozen, because I am trying to get such little pieces. Now, again, if you asked your butcher to grind this up for you, this would save a lot of time. Also, it saves time in the actual rendering process too. All right, let's get it in the pan. So we want to start with a really low heat. I'm going to start on 2, but I'll be turning it to low after it heats my pan up a little bit. Next, we want to add half a cup of water to the bottom of our pan. That's just so the lard doesn't burn. This will all evaporate. Next, we're going to add the lard to the pot. You want to make sure to use a wooden spoon when you are stirring this lard, and you don't need to stir it very often. It just needs to be moved around every 15 to 20 minutes or so that it cooks evenly and the bottom pieces don't get too brown. Now you can see that this is already starting to render. See, now look at this. I missed a piece that was larger right there. And it's much slower than the smaller pieces that I cut up. However, that's all right. I can kind of chop it up and let it take its time. But you can see that it is already starting to render down into the fat. And it's not boiling, it's not bubbling, it's not doing much. It's just very gently melting, basically. What we're wanting it to do is melt. The reason why we don't want to heat our lard, to a really high heat is because it damages the molecular balance of the oil when it's heated. So you can see that this is lard that is from bacon. It's from conventional bacon that I was trying to use up to get out of the freezer. So we would have room for our heirloom pig that was coming. And you can see that it is much darker than this lard that I rendered at a very, very low temperature. So another reason why we want to render this lard at a very low temperature, in fact I just turned it down to 1, is because we don't want it to have a piggy flavor. And leaf lard is best for eliminating the piggy flavor. That is true. I've rendered lard from the back fat and it was horrible. I tried to make a crisp out of it and it tasted like I was eating pig, and not good pig. It was really bad. So you want to leave that piggy flavor out by, number 1, using the leaf lard, and number 2, heating it at a very low temperature. As you can see, even though I have this on a very low temperature, I have it on 1, it is bubbling and basically at a higher temperature than I want. So part of the reason is because it's getting towards the end. It's been about 4 or 5 hours now. And you know when your lard is completely done and rendered when it starts popping and sighing. That means it's getting the last gasps of air out of it. I'm going to render this now just so that you can see how I do it, and then I'll continue to render this until I hear those gasps. So I'm going to drain the sediment basically out of my lard. There will also be cracklings in there, which means the last little bits, kind of the bacon bits of it. But I have a sieve and about 3 layers of cheesecloth on top of a stainless steel funnel, which goes into a wide mouth half pint canning jar. Now the reason I use a smaller one is because I don't use a lot of lard at once, so I like to take smaller containers out of my freezer and use them more quickly so they don't go bad in the refrigerator, you know, sitting there for weeks and weeks on end. I also don't like to have to drain this into a bowl and then re-put it into another container. I prefer to do it all in one. So I'm going to take some spoonfuls of my lard, and this, like I said before, is not completely rendered. It's still working its way down, so I'll put the little bits of lard that haven't been melted basically. This isn't completely rendered yet, and you can also tell the bigger chunks that I didn't get cut up quite as fine as I wanted still have a long way to go, and it's been a good 4 or 5 hours that this has been rendering on the stove top, and it'll be another hour or 2 once I put this last bit back in. I just want to get that real snow white lard, especially in this first batch, and then as it cooks longer, or if I get impatient and turn up the heat, then I still have that first batch. Now in the very end, you're going to still have some of that lard in the form of what's called cracklings left over. It doesn't completely melt down to nothing. So when you hear those last sighs and gasps, you're going to watch it closely and stir it frequently. And then you're going to drain it like I just showed you how, but you will still have some of these left. Now a lot of people like these in their salads. They like to just eat them plain. They're kind of like pork rinds or bacon bits. So you can see from the lard that I rendered last week what happens when I render the lard at a very low temperature, and what I get after just a couple hours is this very beautiful snow white lard. It is perfect for pastries. I waited another hour and rendered some more, and you can see that it got just a little bit darker, and from the smell you can tell it's just a little bit stronger. Now at the end I got a little bit impatient because I had diced that fat in too large of a squares, and I turned up the heat because I wanted to go to bed. I was getting impatient, and I got this much darker lard that is stronger in smell and flavor and would not be suitable for pastry making. This is suitable for maybe frying chicken or cooking a steak in. But what I want and what we're going for is this really beautiful white pastry quality lard that doesn't have a smell or a taste. It is just perfect for the best flaky pie crust you will ever have. Remember, you want to store these in the refrigerator. These are not shelf stable.